Hi folks, thanks for joining me for this week's river tutorial. If you're a returning subscriber, welcome back, and if you're new to the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button. I would really appreciate your support. So what you see in the vise is an emerging olive. So without further ado, let's get into it. The hook in the vise then is a Hanak 333 barbless hook. This one's at size 10 and it's on a fine wire in black nickel. Now I'm using the size 10 for demonstration purposes mainly, and I would mostly tie this fly in a size 12 or a size 14. The thread I'm going to be using today is, you can't see the label there, but it's from Fish On, and it's their ultimate Tinsel, and it's a nice shade of olive. And the first thing I'm going to do with my new super glue, for those that weren't keen on my brush, which was a bit worse for wear, I've got some new super glue courtesy of Steve Cullen. Thanks very much for sending me your spare, pal, saved a big job. And the reason I use super glue when I'm using these silks, the nano silks, Semperfi, Vivis, is that I just feel that the wax doesn't hold the thread particularly well. If you put a little bit of super glue onto the shank of the hook, it does make a big difference with body rotation. Not that that's going to be a significant problem with this fly, as we are going to be using the thread as the body material. So I've just taken off my waist end, and I'm going to come down a little further. I like this to be quite a long bodied fly, and I'm going to halt it there. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be using some Textreme. You might have seen, if you follow the channel, you see I used some of this stuff on a cormorant a week or so back. But basically, it's quite a flexible sort of material, and it's got, if you pull it, it turns into a rib. So I've gotten myself some off the card, and I've given it a gentle pull as described, and it was a lot trickier than I thought it would be, to be honest, but I have managed to get a little bit of this that I quite like the look of thickness wise. You can see, so it goes from that to a much thinner there. So I'm going to take away that tag end, and I'm going to catch that in. He says, catching it in the second time round, and then I'm going to carefully work my way back up the body of my fly, just making sure I catch that end in. Doesn't matter, because we're going to be coming up and down here quite a bit, just to build a little bit of taper into the body. Now I'm going to stop there, and at this point I'm just giving my bobbin a spin anti-clockwise, and this just flattens out the ultimate Tinsel, and then I'm going to start to build my taper down my body. I'll come nearly all the way to the bottom, and then I'm going to come back up. It does take a little bit of time because the silk is very fine, so building the taper takes some time, but if you're in no rush, and I'm not in any particular rush, you get a really nice effect with it, and it's the perfect colour of olive for this pattern. So I've built quite a nice taper in there. I'm going to bring my magic tinsel, is that what it's called? I've forgotten already. Yeah, magic tinsel combo pack. So it comes in two sort of widths, and the one I'm using is the smaller of the two today, just to get this little bit of flash into the body of the fly. Of course, you can just use the tinsel flat and you'll achieve a very similar effect, but I've decided to try pulling it a little, just to make it more like a rib. So I'm going to bring that all the way up and catch that in just where I'm going to start my thorax. 2 or 3 turns, a couple of turns in front, just to make sure your thread doesn't back up and your rib comes undone. That would be a disaster. Now, so it's a shuttlecock style of emerger, and what I'm going to be using for my CDC is from Troutline, and these are some of the Ultra Select feathers, and the colour's grey brown for this. Now I would use natural if I had it, but unfortunately I'm out of the natural good stuff. I've got plenty of smaller fibres, but for this style you really need the longer sort of fibres from the Coq de Leon. Now I've already married the tips up, not that it needs much marrying. The Ultra Select's very good. It comes in a pack, and what I'm doing is just stroking through with my thumb and forefinger, and I want to get about the length of the hook, maybe slightly over. So I've just dressed up with my thumbs touching the eye of the hook now, and the CDC's coming off the back, which is about exactly right. And I want to, where I've measured with a thumb, lay that down at the start of my thorax, and then with a couple of turns I can catch that into place, and I want to come back another 2 or 3 turns there. Just lift your feather, make sure it's sitting where you want it, and then you can come in with your snips and remove your waste. Now when I say waste, don't throw these out, just put them to the side. I've got a little bag that I keep these in, and I use these for the collars on bugs and nymphs, so you're getting maximum use out of the materials rather than just wasting them. Okay, the thorax itself then is from Troutstalkers, and this is a Bugslife hybrid dubbing. So what does that mean? It's a synthetic material mixed with some natural materials, and there's lots of lovely colours in it, and you'll see that as I start to put the dubbing onto the thread. So all I want to do is, you'll notice I've not added any wax. I don't want any wax onto this really, and I'm just gently adding my dubbing, and there's reds and browns and olives. It's a cracking dubbing for this. It's funny because most things I can cross over between my still water fishing and my reservoir fishing, but I don't tend to use this stuff on my reservoir flies. It seems to work particularly well on the river. So I've got my dubbing loop on. It's not particularly tight, and I'm going to bring that round to create my thorax. Now I want to try and avoid the very front of the hook, because my CDC is going to come over in that parachute style. So that's me got my thorax in place, and it's looking pretty good. And then I took some time to get this measurement right, and the reason for that is when this comes over the top, you don't want the CDC sticking too far from the eye. So I pulled that as tight as I can with my thumb and forefinger, and I've got it into position. Now at the moment you can see that doesn't look so good. It's covered up the eye, and it's not particularly fisherman friendly, as I would say. It would be difficult to thread your thread. So I'm going to pull that all back now, and I'm going to just create a small bump at the front of the hook, which is going to cock up that hackle for me. And then to finish off, I'm going to again come in with my super glue, add a tiny amount to my thread, and then I can come in with my whip finish. And because I've added the super glue to the thread at this stage, it means that I can simply finish the fly off. Again, good whip finish in there, and that'll set and will not come undone ever, or certainly not until a big massive trout has smashed it and you're sitting with your photograph and your treasured memory of catching that huge sipper. And there you go. So that's an olive emerger. I hope you enjoyed that. Some interesting techniques. They're tried and tested. Tie the pattern down in size though, you know, size 14, size 16 if your eyes will put up with that, and it will serve you well. Thanks very much for watching. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please think about clicking that subscribe button. I would really appreciate your support.